What if I told you that the secret to unlocking your fasting potential isn't fasting longer, but moving smarter? While most people are obsessing over whether to fast for 16 hours or 18, there's a simple 30-minute habit that could completely revolutionize your results. Stay with me because by the end of this video, you'll understand exactly why some people thrive on intermittent fasting while others struggle, and how you can join the group that's winning. Let's dive in. You've probably noticed something strange in the fasting community. Some individuals seem to breeze through their fasting windows with incredible energy, mental clarity, and enthusiasm. Meanwhile, others are counting down every minute, fighting hunger pangs, experiencing brain fog, and wondering what they're doing wrong. The common assumption is that these differences come down to willpower or genetic advantages. But research reveals something far more interesting. The gap between those who succeed and those who struggle has little to do with genetics or mental toughness. The real difference lies in a surprisingly simple factor that most fasting guides completely overlook. It's not about extending your fasting window from 16 hours to 20. It's not about drinking special teas or taking expensive supplements. The game changer is movement, specifically a daily 30-minute walk performed at the optimal time. This single habit creates a metabolic transformation that amplifies every benefit of fasting. When you understand the science behind this combination, everything changes. You'll see fasting in an entirely new light. Most people approach intermittent fasting with a simple strategy. They skip breakfast, delay lunch, and maybe attempt a full 24-hour fast occasionally. The logic seems sound. If fasting for 16 hours produces benefits, then fasting for 18 or 20 hours should produce even better results, right? Not necessarily. This approach misses a critical component that determines whether your body actually enters the fat-burning state that makes fasting so powerful. Extending your fasting window alone creates only part of the equation. What truly activates the profound metabolic changes associated with fasting is introducing the right kind of physical activity at precisely the right moment. And here's the remarkable part. You don't need high-intensity interval training or expensive gym equipment. You don't need to become a marathon runner or spend hours exercising. A simple 30-minute walk combined with strategic timing delivers extraordinary results. Before we explore the fascinating science, I need to mention something important. This information serves educational purposes exclusively. Everyone's health situation is unique with different medical histories, conditions, and medications. If you have any existing health concerns or take prescription medications, please consult with your healthcare provider before modifying your eating patterns or exercise routines. Now, let's examine what's actually happening inside your cells when you fast. Once you grasp these fundamental mechanisms, the power of combining fasting with walking will make perfect sense. Your body operates like an incredibly sophisticated machine with multiple fuel sources and backup systems. When you consume a meal, your digestive system begins breaking down the food into its component parts. Carbohydrates get converted into glucose, which represents your body's preferred immediate energy source. This glucose enters your bloodstream, where it becomes available for your cells to use right away. Your muscles, brain, organs, and tissues all draw upon this circulating glucose to power their activities. Whatever glucose your body doesn't need immediately doesn't go to waste. Your liver and muscles have a storage mechanism. They convert excess glucose into a substance called glycogen, which functions essentially as your biological backup battery. Your liver can store roughly 100 grams of glycogen, while your muscles collectively hold about 400 grams. This glycogen sits ready to be converted back into glucose whenever your blood sugar starts dropping between meals. Now comes the interesting transformation. After approximately 8 to 12 hours without consuming food, your glycogen reserves begin depleting significantly. Your body recognizes that its primary fuel source is running low. This triggers an important metabolic decision point. Your system needs to find an alternative energy source, and it turns to your stored body fat. Your adipose tissue, which is where your body stores fat, begins releasing fatty acids into your bloodstream. Your liver then performs a remarkable conversion, transforming some of these fatty acids into molecules called ketones. Ketones represent an exceptionally efficient fuel source, particularly for your brain. This transition from glucose burning to fat burning is what scientists call the metabolic switch. This switch represents the moment when fasting truly begins delivering its most powerful benefits. However, here's what most fasting enthusiasts never realize. This metabolic switch doesn't activate instantly like flipping a light switch. For many people, it doesn't engage completely at all. Their metabolism hovers in an uncomfortable middle zone, not fully committed to burning fat for fuel. This incomplete transition explains why some people feel terrible while fasting. Their bodies are stuck between fuel sources, unable to access glucose but not yet efficiently burning fat. This is precisely where incorporating walking into your fasting routine becomes transformational. When you walk during your fasting window, you dramatically accelerate this entire metabolic transition process. You help your body flip that critical switch faster, more forcefully, and more completely. Let me explain the specific biological mechanisms that make this happen. Inside every single cell throughout your body exists an energy sensor with the scientific name AMP-activated protein kinase. Scientists abbreviate this as AMPK, which is much easier to remember and discuss. You can think of AMPK as your body's master metabolic regulator, constantly monitoring the energy status inside each cell. When cellular energy levels are abundant, AMPK remains relatively quiet and inactive. But when energy supplies start dropping, such as during fasting when your cells are running low on fuel, AMPK becomes activated. Once AMPK activates, it sends powerful signals throughout your entire body. These signals essentially communicate a clear message. Stop storing energy as fat and start burning stored fat for fuel instead. Here's the crucial insight that changes everything. Two interventions activate AMPK more powerfully than almost any other natural stimulus. The first intervention is fasting itself. The second is physical exercise. When you combine both strategies, when you walk while in a fasted state, you create what scientists call a synergistic activation of AMPK. The effects don't simply add together, like 1 + 1 = 2. Instead, they multiply together, creating results far greater than either approach could achieve independently. Researchers use the term synergistic effect to describe this phenomenon, where the combination produces outcomes that exceed the sum of the individual parts. Consider the practical implications of this scientific finding. Fasting alone activates AMPK to a certain degree, providing some metabolic benefits. Walking alone activates AMPK to a certain degree, offering its own advantages. But fasting combined with walking pushes AMPK activation to levels that neither intervention could reach on its own. This synergy explains why pharmaceutical companies have invested billions of dollars, attempting to develop drugs that activate AMPK artificially. Medications like metformin, commonly prescribed for managing type 2 diabetes, work partially through this AMPK activation mechanism. But researchers have discovered something important through their studies. Nothing activates AMPK as powerfully, as safely, and as comprehensively as actual physical movement combined with a fasted state. When you walk during your fasting window, you're accomplishing naturally and for free what expensive medications are designed to replicate. Your body is doing exactly what evolution designed it to do, responding to movement and food scarcity by becoming more efficient. So what exactly occurs after AMPK gets activated in your cells? Let's explore deeper into your cellular machinery to understand the cascade of beneficial changes. Inside each of your muscle cells exist thousands of microscopic structures called mitochondria. These organelles function as your cellular power plants, with the sole job of converting fuel into usable energy in the form of ATP. When you walk during a fasted state, something truly remarkable happens at the mitochondrial level. Your body recognizes it needs more energy to fuel your movement. However, there's no incoming food to provide that energy. So instead of simply working harder with existing resources, your body initiates a process of building additional mitochondria. Scientists call this process mitochondrial biogenesis, which literally means the creation of new mitochondria. Essentially, your body is constructing new power plants to meet the increased energy demands you're placing on it. Research consistently shows that people who regularly exercise while fasting develop significantly more mitochondria in their muscle cells compared to those who don't combine these practices. Furthermore, these newly created mitochondria don't just increase in number. They also become more efficient at their job of burning fat for fuel. This adaptation explains something that surprises many people when they first begin fasted walking. After the initial adjustment period, which typically lasts 1 to 2 weeks, they start feeling more energized during their fasts, not less. Their bodies have literally upgraded their energy production capacity at the cellular level. But the mitochondrial benefits represent only part of the story. Specific enzymes responsible for breaking down stored fat also get supercharged through this practice. One particularly fascinating study measured enzyme activity in people who trained in a fasted state compared to those who exercised after eating. The fasted exercise group showed fat-burning enzyme activity that was 47% higher. These enzymes play a crucial role in releasing fatty acids from your adipose tissue, making them available for your mitochondria to burn. More active enzymes translate directly to more efficient fat breakdown and utilization throughout the day. Simultaneously, your body optimizes how it manages and uses its limited glycogen reserves. Light to moderate activity like walking depletes glycogen gradually without causing excessive physiological stress. This gentle, controlled depletion trains your body to rely increasingly on fat as its primary fuel source. Over time, your metabolism becomes what researchers call metabolically flexible, able to seamlessly switch between burning carbohydrates and burning fat depending on availability. Most modern people who eat frequently throughout the day never develop this metabolic flexibility. Now let's examine the hormonal changes, because this is where the science becomes even more fascinating. When you fast, your insulin levels drop significantly throughout your body. Insulin functions as a storage hormone, essentially telling your cells to store incoming energy. When insulin levels are low, your body can much more easily access and burn stored fat for energy. Walking during this low insulin state enhances something called insulin sensitivity, which represents how responsive your cells are to insulin's signals. This means that when you eventually break your fast and eat again, your body handles that incoming food much more efficiently. Glucose gets preferentially absorbed by your muscles where it can be burned for energy, instead of being stored as fat in your adipose tissue. A research study conducted at the University of Bath followed participants for 6 weeks. One group performed exercise in a fasted state, while another group did identical exercise after eating. The fasted exercise group showed significantly improved insulin sensitivity and blood glucose control compared to the fed exercise group. But the hormonal changes extend well beyond insulin alone. When you exercise while fasting, your body releases increased amounts of adrenaline, also known as epinephrine. Adrenaline directly stimulates the breakdown of stored fat, essentially telling your fat cells to release their stored energy so your muscles can use it. At the same time, growth hormone levels increase substantially during fasted exercise. Growth hormone serves multiple important functions, including helping to preserve muscle mass while simultaneously promoting fat burning. Some scientific studies have demonstrated that growth hormone levels can increase up to 5-fold during a fasted state compared to fed states. This combination of low insulin, elevated adrenaline, and increased growth hormone creates what researchers consider the ideal hormonal environment for burning fat while protecting lean muscle tissue. Here's something worth emphasizing strongly. This hormonal shift isn't merely about losing weight or changing your appearance. It fundamentally transforms how your body produces and utilizes energy throughout each day. When your insulin remains chronically elevated, which happens when you eat frequently throughout the day, your cells gradually become less responsive to insulin's signals over time. Scientists call this condition insulin resistance, and it sits at the root of numerous metabolic problems including type 2 diabetes, obesity, and cardiovascular disease. But when you regularly walk during your fasting window, you're actively training your body to become more sensitive and responsive to insulin. Your cells become better at absorbing glucose when you do eat. This improved sensitivity means more energy gets directed toward your muscles where it can be used productively, and less gets stored as fat in adipose tissue. Over weeks and months, this enhanced insulin sensitivity translates to more stable energy levels throughout the day, fewer intense food cravings, and a metabolism that works cooperatively with you rather than fighting against your goals. Many people express concerns about cortisol when discussing fasting and exercise. Cortisol is often called the stress hormone, and it's true that fasting does cause a mild increase in cortisol levels. This cortisol response actually represents part of how your body mobilizes stored energy to fuel your activities. But here's what most people don't realize about cortisol and fasted walking. Gentle exercise like walking actually helps regulate and smooth out cortisol levels throughout the day. Instead of experiencing the sharp spikes and subsequent crashes you might experience just sitting around feeling hungry, walking creates a much smoother, more controlled energy curve throughout your fasting window. The result is steadier energy, improved mood stability, and less of that anxious, jittery, irritable feeling some people experience when fasting. Let's shift our focus to your brain now, because the benefits of fasted walking extend far beyond fat burning and metabolic health. Many people logically assume that fasting would make them mentally tired and unable to concentrate effectively. After all, your brain requires substantial fuel to function properly, right? Interestingly, the opposite phenomenon often occurs, and there's solid neuroscience behind this counterintuitive finding. When your body burns fat for fuel, your liver produces those ketone molecules we discussed earlier. Ketones represent an exceptionally clean and efficient fuel source for your brain tissue. Unlike glucose, which can cause energy spikes followed by crashes, ketones provide a steady, stable stream of energy to your neurons. This metabolic stability explains why many people report feeling mentally sharper and more focused during their fasting windows, especially after they've adapted to the practice over a few weeks. But walking during your fast introduces another powerful neurological element beyond just ketone production. Physical exercise stimulates the production of a protein called brain-derived neurotrophic factor, abbreviated as BDNF. You can think of BDNF as fertilizer for your brain tissue. It helps create new neural connections between neurons, strengthens existing connections, and protects brain cells from various forms of damage. Research conducted on older adults has found that regular walking can actually increase the physical volume of the hippocampus, the brain region primarily responsible for memory formation, by up to 2%. In a field where gradual brain shrinkage with aging is considered normal and expected, this finding represents something truly remarkable. Fasting independently increases BDNF production. Walking independently increases BDNF production. Combine these two practices and your brain receives a double dose of this growth-promoting neuroprotective protein. There's also a measurable effect on your neurotransmitters, the chemical messengers that allow neurons to communicate with each other. Walking during a fasted state positively influences levels of dopamine and serotonin, two critically important neurotransmitters. Dopamine is strongly associated with motivation, reward, and goal-directed behavior. Serotonin is linked to mood stability, emotional well-being, and feelings of contentment. This neurochemical shift explains why many practitioners describe experiencing a sense of mental clarity and emotional calm after their morning fasted walk. This isn't just a placebo effect or wishful thinking. It represents measurable, quantifiable changes in brain chemistry. Unlike the temporary boost you might get from caffeine or sugar, which is followed by an inevitable crash, this enhanced energy and focus tends to be sustained throughout the day. There's no crash several hours later because your brain is running on clean, stable fuel rather than relying on quick-burning glucose. Many people who adopt this practice of fasted walking report that they no longer need that second or third cup of coffee to get through their afternoons. Their natural energy production has improved so substantially that artificial stimulants become less necessary. Some people find they can reduce their caffeine intake significantly or eliminate it, entirely while maintaining high energy and focus. Now let's discuss timing, because when you exercise matters considerably more than most people realize or appreciate. Your body operates according to biological clocks located in almost every organ system. Your liver has its own circadian clock. Your muscles have their own clocks. Your digestive system has clocks. Your brain houses a master clock in a region called the suprachiasmatic nucleus that coordinates all the other clocks throughout your body. Light exposure in the morning sets this master clock, synchronizing it with the external day-night cycle. But physical movement plays a crucial role in synchronizing all the peripheral clocks in your various organs and tissues. This synchronization profoundly affects when different hormones get released, when your metabolism operates most actively, and when your body burns fat most efficiently. A particularly illuminating study compared people who cycled before eating breakfast versus those who cycled after eating breakfast. The results were striking and somewhat unexpected. The group that exercised before eating demonstrated fat utilization that was 3 times more effective than the post-breakfast exercise group, not twice as effective or marginally better. 3 times more effective. This doesn't mean that walking in the afternoon or evening provides no benefits whatsoever. Any movement is beneficial for your health and metabolism. But if you have the flexibility to choose when you exercise, Morning fasted walking appears to represent the optimal window for maximizing metabolic benefits. From an evolutionary perspective, this timing advantage makes complete sense when you think about it. For millions of years throughout human evolution, our ancestors woke at dawn and immediately began moving. Not after eating a leisurely breakfast, but before finding or hunting food. The hunt or gathering activity happened on an empty stomach, requiring both mental acuity and physical capability. Those individuals who could think clearly and move efficiently while hungry survived and successfully passed on their genes to subsequent generations. Those who couldn't perform well in a fasted state didn't survive long enough to reproduce. Your body still carries this ancient evolutionary programming encoded in your DNA. When you walk during your fasting window, you're activating the same survival circuitry that kept your ancestors alive. Here's something else that might surprise you about timing and metabolic effects. The benefits of fasted walking don't stop when you finish your walk and return home. A fascinating study conducted in Japan found something remarkable about the extended effects of exercise timing. Exercise performed before breakfast increased 24-hour fat oxidation significantly. The same exercise performed in the afternoon or evening didn't produce the same all-day fat-burning effect. This means that your 30-minute morning walk isn't just burning calories during those 30 minutes of activity. It's actually setting your entire metabolism to a more efficient fat-burning mode that persists throughout the entire day. Think of it like starting an engine and getting it running smoothly. Once that engine is running efficiently, it tends to stay that way rather than constantly stopping and starting. Your morning walk essentially starts your metabolic engine in fat-burning mode, and it continues running in that mode all day long. This explains why people often report that they feel more energized and less hungry throughout the entire day when they walk in the morning while fasted. So how do you actually put this science into practice in your daily life? Let me provide you with specific actionable guidance based on research findings. First, let's discuss optimal timing for your walk. The ideal time to walk is toward the end of your fasting window, not at the beginning. If you follow a standard 16-8 eating schedule where you consume all your food between noon and 8 p.m., then walking in the morning between 7 and 9 a.m. would be perfect timing. You're maximizing the duration your body has been in a fasted state, allowing glycogen to deplete and fat burning to initiate. Second, let's address intensity, which is crucial for getting the benefits without overdoing it. You want to walk briskly, but you shouldn't be jogging or running. This also shouldn't be a casual, leisurely stroll where you're moving barely faster than standing still. Aim for a pace where you can still hold a conversation with someone, but it requires a little effort to do so. Your breathing should be noticeably elevated compared to resting, but you shouldn't be gasping for air or unable to speak. For most people, this translates to approximately 3 to 4 miles per hour, or roughly 5 to 6 kilometers per hour. Third, let's discuss what to avoid during your fasted walks. Don't push yourself too hard or try to set personal records. This practice isn't about exhausting yourself or proving how tough you are. Gentle to moderate intensity is completely sufficient to trigger all the beneficial metabolic adaptations we've discussed. Intense, exhausting exercise while fasting can actually stress your body excessively and become counterproductive, potentially triggering excessive cortisol release or breaking down muscle tissue. Save the really hard workouts and high-intensity training for times when you've eaten and have readily available fuel. If you follow a one-meal-a-day eating pattern, try scheduling your walk 2 to 3 hours before your single meal. This timing allows you to refuel relatively soon after exercising while still getting the fasted exercise benefits. If you're attempting extended fasts of 24 hours or longer, keep your walking intensity lighter than usual and pay very close attention to how your body feels. Extended fasting combined with exercise requires more caution. Hydration deserves special attention when combining fasting with walking. Make sure to drink water before your walk and again after you finish. If you re-fasting for longer periods exceeding 16 hours or if you re-sweating heavily during your walk, consider adding a small pinch of high-quality salt to your water to replace electrolytes. Sodium, potassium, and magnesium all play important roles in maintaining proper hydration status and muscle function during fasted exercise. Some people find it helpful to start gradually with shorter walks, perhaps 15 to 20 minutes, and progressively build up to 30 minutes as their body adapts to this new stress. There's absolutely no rush to reach 30 minutes immediately. Consistency over weeks and months matters far more than intensity during any single session. And please, listen carefully to your body's signals. If you experience severe dizziness, irregular heartbeat, nausea, confusion, or any other concerning symptoms, stop immediately and consume some food. Your body is sending you important signals that it needs a break. This cautious approach is especially important for beginners who are still adapting to fasting. Certain groups should be extra cautious or avoid this practice entirely until consulting with their healthcare provider. Pregnant or breastfeeding women should not practice intermittent fasting due to increased nutritional needs. People with a history of eating disorders should approach fasting very carefully and ideally work with a qualified healthcare provider or therapist. Those with type 1 diabetes face unique challenges with blood sugar management during fasting. Anyone with heart conditions or who takes medications for blood pressure or blood sugar needs medical guidance, as fasting and exercise can affect these parameters. And anyone who is significantly underweight or malnourished should focus on proper nutrition and potentially gaining weight rather than fasting. These precautions aren't meant to scare you. They're meant to ensure you approach this practice safely and appropriately for your individual situation. Now let us talk about what happens when you make fasted walking a consistent habit over weeks and months. In the first week or two, you might feel somewhat tired or low energy during your walks. This response is completely normal and expected. Your body is still learning to efficiently access and utilize stored fat for fuel. This adaptation doesn't happen overnight. Many people feel discouraged during this initial phase and want to quit, thinking the practice isn't working for them or that they're doing something wrong. But if you push through this temporary adaptation period, something significant shifts in your metabolism. By week 3 or 4, most people report a noticeable and often dramatic change in how they feel. They start feeling more energized during their fasted walks, not less. The fatigue that characterized the first couple weeks disappears. Their mental clarity improves substantially. The afternoon energy slump they used to experience regularly starts to fade away. This transformation happens because your body has successfully adapted at the cellular level. You've built more mitochondria in your muscle cells. Your fat-burning enzymes have become significantly more active. Your hormones have adjusted to this new daily rhythm. Your brain has become efficient at running on ketones. Over the long term, spanning months and years, consistent fasted walking leads to sustainable weight management. This doesn't happen through restriction and willpower, constantly fighting against your body's natural tendencies. Instead, it occurs through metabolic optimization, where your body simply becomes more efficient at using stored fat for fuel. Your energy levels stabilize throughout the day, with fewer dramatic peaks and valleys. The mid-afternoon energy crashes that used to send you desperately reaching for snacks or coffee become less frequent and eventually may disappear entirely. You might find that you need less total sleep to feel fully rested and refreshed, because your body is producing energy more efficiently at the cellular level. You develop what researchers call metabolic flexibility, which represents the ability to seamlessly switch between burning carbohydrates and burning fat depending on what's available. Most modern people who eat frequently throughout the day never develop this metabolic flexibility. Their bodies remain locked in carbohydrate-burning mode, constantly requiring incoming glucose to function properly. But with regular fasted walking practiced consistently over time, you train your metabolism to become truly adaptable. Your body becomes comfortable and efficient in both fed and fasted states, able to draw upon whichever fuel source is most appropriate for the current situation. This flexibility represents true metabolic health and resilience. So let's bring all of this scientific information together into a coherent understanding. Walking for 30 minutes daily during your fasting window accomplishes far more than simply burning a few hundred extra calories. From AMPK activation at the cellular level to mitochondrial biogenesis in your muscles, and adrenaline to brain enhancement through BDNF and ketone production. Your body literally transforms into a more efficient energy-producing machine. You burn stored fat more effectively than before. You think more clearly with enhanced focus and concentration. You feel more energized throughout the day without relying on stimulants. And here's what makes this practice so accessible and sustainable. This isn't a complicated protocol requiring special equipment or facilities. No gym membership required. No expensive supplements or gadgets. No complicated meal plans or calorie counting. Just a comfortable pair of walking shoes and 30 minutes of your time each day. Some fitness trainers and nutritionists argue vehemently that you should never exercise on an empty stomach. They claim you'll lose muscle mass, crash from low blood sugar, or fail to perform effectively. But the accumulated research tells a very different story when you look at the actual data. When done correctly with appropriate intensity and duration. So what do you think about this practice now that you understand the science? Is fasted walking underrated and deserving of more attention? Or is it overhyped and not worth the effort? I genuinely want to hear your perspective and experience in the comments section below. And I'm curious about your current habits. When do you usually do your walks? Morning, afternoon, or evening? And do you walk during your fasting window, or do you prefer walking after eating? Share your experience and what works for you. Perhaps you've tried fasted walking and noticed specific benefits or challenges. Maybe you have questions about how to implement this practice in your particular situation. The comment section is a great place to share and learn from each other's experiences. If this video helped you understand how to get more from your fasting routine, I'd really appreciate it if you'd consider subscribing to the channel. Coming up next, we're going to examine what happens when you extend your fast to a full 4 hours. The findings might surprise you, and they'll definitely challenge some common assumptions about fasting. You won't want to miss that upcoming video. Before we end, I want to provide an important disclaimer. The information presented in this video is for educational and informational purposes only. It is not intended as medical advice or as a substitute for professional medical consultation, diagnosis, or treatment you may have regarding a medical condition or health objectives. Never disregard professional medical advice or delay in seeking it because of something you have seen or heard in this video. Individual results may vary, and what works for one person may not work for another. Thank you so much for watching, and I truly appreciate your time and attention. I'll see you in the next video where we continue exploring the fascinating science of fasting and metabolism.